On this episode of AV Week, the crossroads of digital signage and the AV industry. More investment firms getting involved in AV. And Legrand acquires Connectrac. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 428, recorded Friday, November 1st, 2019. No socks.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Peerless AV, driving technology through innovation.
And by
Extron, industry-leading technology backed by world-class support.
And by
Shure, sound extraordinary.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week, first and foremost, his name is George Fournier, and he is from Danker. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Absolutely. Also with us is Brandy Alvarado. Brandy is from Southern California, Mad Systems, and the chairperson of the Women of AVIXA. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
You two be nice to these other two gentlemen because this is their first time, both of them. First and foremost, Gary Wicca. Gary is from LG. Welcome, sir.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Mr. Ron Lewis from AVI SPL. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's get this started. First and foremost, from our friends over at AV Magazine, an investment firm is taking a stock in Whitlock. AV Integrator Whitlock, which has quote-unquote 20 offices across the U.S., has announced that Marlin Equity Partners is taking a majority stake in the company, providing growth and funding. George, I'm going to start with you on this. From a standpoint of more and more investment firms and equity partners getting into the industry in general, right? Mm-hmm. Actually, almost quite 2 years ago now, Highland Partners, led by Rashid Skaff, purchased Biamp. A number of other investment firms and investment banks have gotten in and around, whether it's integration firms or the manufacturing side. What does this say about the industry? Is it a maturity thing? Is it a good thing that, hey, this equity partner is getting in and finding value in an AV integrator, or is this something a little bit more dark and nefarious going on?
I wouldn't say so much dark and nefarious, but I mean, I've seen the pluses and minuses. I would say that on the plus side, these equity firms are actually seeing there's money to be made. We've said for years is that our industry is the most expensive, most highest profit industry in the world that nobody knows about, but everybody uses. And these companies are starting to realize, whether it's on the manufacturing side or on the integrator side, there's capabilities and opportunities out there for that. On the flip side to that, though, is for the guys and girls who work at the smaller AV integrators that get bought up. Occasionally, there are great success stories for this, but other times you see some niche companies that get bought up by somebody who's not from the industry, and they get changed. The company I worked for probably about a decade ago was one of the premier digital signage and AV for retail type of companies in the world, and they got bought up by an investment company who brought in a marketing guru to run their company. And the marketing guru's speech to the team was, hey, don't worry, we're not going to turn you into a marketing company. We're going to go out. We have a unique approach to the industry, and we're going to take it to a whole new level. And within 6 months, the entire technical team was gone. They've moved on to other companies in the industry, and the actual founders of the company moved on as well, because it was no longer about bringing the wow to retail, and the message being for the retailers to have a cohesive message of everything delivered through technology, through state of the art, new at the time. Twitter was only about a month old at the time. Different ways of delivering message. It became all about marketing and getting other companies to deliver the message for you. And so then, for us, I wound up moving on myself. And it was the end of a dream that a bunch of us had seen that was going to be quite unique, and we wound up beholding to stockholders and financial sides, which took away from the niche part of being a small startup that was breaking brave new ground in the industry.
Brandy, George makes a point about there when different people sit at the table, there are different concerns, right? And I've had some conversations with some folks, actually from Control4 about their recent move. Control4 was a publicly traded company, so they had stockholders, and now they're not. They were purchased by Snap AV, and the changes within the culture, the changes within the decision making process, all of that absolutely changes when the people financing the endeavor change. Talk for a second about not only just from the consumer side, but also from maybe the competitor side and the client side. The things that folks have to do within a company to, yes, absolutely make sure the folks that are signing the paychecks, as it were, are happy, but also make sure that your clients are still taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big thing, because bottom line, without your clients, you don't have a bottom line. So you've got to take care of them. But I also think that, you have to also take care of your employees, and a private equity firm or, another type of acquisition type of firm that are coming in and buying these companies, there's definitely pros and cons, like George said. And I think some of the things that are, in my mind, definitely a pro is that, I've been through acquisitions, and one of the sort of the nicer things is, you have a better benefit pool. You get richer health benefits and things to that nature sometimes. You get a more integrated payroll system or HR system that, is more cohesive and across the board. So things like that are very, very much an internal kind of benefit for folks at a company. And then, I think that these private equity firms historically just add more value, not only, profitability, but they add a layer that a lot of these smaller firms are missing. And certainly, Whitlock is not a small firm, but I think if we're speaking to smaller integration firms, it definitely adds a layer that a lot of these firms might not necessarily have for their staff. And then, when you're taking care of your staff, those staff members are really taking care of the customer. So, that's really kind of the bottom line, and can go out and do, I think, a better job and feel more comfortable.
Yeah. Gary, when you start looking at your clients, which are your direct clients, or the integrators and the folks that are putting these things in, how much of a change, or does it really change at all, your guys' interaction, depending on kind of who owns them and who's the back end of that?
Well, I think at the very beginning, you'll take a look at it. I don't think there's a whole lot of change from a manufacturer standpoint. Working with the different integrators and partners, usually everything is going to be pretty straightforward. You have seen, I think you've had both Brandy and George mention changes that happen later on, and I think that's the case for us as well. When you say, do we have different dealings? Do we have different programs, et cetera? Absolutely. But I think there's some benefits that come on that on both sides. As we think about, first and foremost, seeing this type of private equity and just acquisitions going on in the market within this area, I think it's a really good sign for this business. If there wasn't profit to be made, you wouldn't see these types of deals happening. I think long run, as those start to say, well, how do we exit, or how do we, again, turn this, that changes some of the dynamics. And I think in those cases, we have seen some changes happen. I can't really say that we've ever seen anything negative really come through where, gosh, we stopped doing business with someone because of the acquisition or because of the private equity firm coming in. But it definitely, can change the dynamics within the organization. And then I think, as George mentioned, you do have certain people that leave, and that, you have to build new relationships, and you do have to have some of those challenges that pop up. But otherwise, I would say things are pretty much straightforward for us on our side.
Ron, I'm going to pick on you on the last one here. AVISPL is the biggest AV integrator in the world. Is financed in the back end by an investment firm, investment bank. The SCN 50, the applications for those were just finalized this last week. I don't know anything, so don't, this is not me speaking out of school. I would put good money, though, that you guys are still number one. So let's talk about that for a second. And the differences between working for a company that is rather big, right? Again, AVISPL is the biggest in the world, versus working for someone who is either local or regional when it comes to, the differences in decision making and kind of the company culture.
No, absolutely. I was obviously started with SPL back in 2006.
Okay.
And and then during the merger with AVI and Silver Lake, and now with HIG, a lot of changes obviously, but the biggest impact was, I always liken it to the boots on the ground, the folks that don't see all the inner workings. It's almost like the furnace room. You don't know that it's running, but if the temperature's not quite right in the room, you can certainly feel it. But the influx of obviously the capital to do some additional things as far as, I think Brandon even mentioned, just some benefits for the employees themselves. But I think of some of the growth of the employees from a training standpoint, right? Being able to leverage those monies and that sort of thing that really bring the competence level up of the groups makes the big difference, right? So, at AVSPL, we've always talked about core competencies and not going beyond that, trying to stay within those core competencies and build that. But having that influx of capital is obviously there. The downfall again is change. Change is not a four-letter word, but it seems like it. Most people see it is that way. But I think with some of that, it's really all about, again, bringing that AV, the family atmosphere. Even though AVSPL is big, it's still, it's not a Tyco. I talk to folks that I interview that want to come in all the time, but just really being a part, again, core values with the influx, you're able to take care of the employees and really kind of that sustained growth strategy should go really does make a huge impact, huge impact.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because the folks, I know different folks at AVISPL in different offices. My sense, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Ron, is one of the ways that you guys have able to kind of foster that family atmosphere are the regional officers, right? Are the Tampa office has a family atmosphere, and as well as the Chicago office, which is a different atmosphere, right? Different
Yes, sir.
folks, different people, but it's the same type of atmosphere. It's a completely different feel, maybe necessarily, but it's the Chicago family, right? It's the Tampa family, but you guys are all a part of the whole too.
Yeah, it's really the respect for the regional difference. I believe, foundationally, again, core values, foundational aspects of whether it be engineering, project management, whatever that is, we really kind of stick to that because it's mentioned before in the call that clients expect some of that same touch, that same feel. It doesn't matter. The accent is different on the end of the line, but the delivery and the satisfaction needs to be there. But each office really takes on its own culture, in that a lot of different things that we do, even externally, with folks from the community aspect of community building, that sort of thing. But it's really interesting because it's the fine line of we need to do it in a similar manner, consistent manner, but we still need to appreciate the fact that New York is different than San Diego and then Chicago, than Frankfurt. But it is truly, you go into the office and you can sense that from both a corporate standpoint as well as local, and it's a nice feel.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on this the accent of the Chicago area residents. But they are at least Bears fans, so I appreciate that. All right.
Someone has to be, right? Someone has to be.
Brother, we all have, we all have our crosses to bear. They're also Cubs fan, but that's a whole other thing to talk about as a St. Louis boy. So next story comes to us from our. Thanks so much for watching the first segment of AV Week. If you want to watch the full segment, the other two stories that we're going to cover, click in the description below and it'll take you straight there. Or you can just go to the website, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv.